Hey guys, welcome back to True Crime with Shannon, where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. Alright, so it's been a day here, and I know a lot of you guys have felt the same way due to the Delphi news. However, as much as I really want to do another video and cover that presser, which I probably am going to do at some point, I felt like, as much as I'm into that, the Valva trial really needs some attention. So I was going to wait till tomorrow, but you know, it needs to be done now. And I need to get caught up. The defense, they took the case late last week, and we have some updates. So I'm going to get us all caught up on that today. But before we get into the topic, I always feature a missing persons poster on the channel. So let me pull up the poster for today. Today's missing person is going to be Maxmilian Van Wey. It states Maxmilian Van Wey as a white male. Date of birth is 5/27 of 2009. 13 years old. Height is 4'11", 87 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. Maxmilian was last seen wearing a navy blue polo shirt, blue jeans, and black shoes. Maxmilian Van Wey was last seen leaving the 3900 block of Wilkie Way, 76133 at approximately 9 a.m. on 10/28 of 2022. That would have been Friday. Missing child is entered in the NCIC, TCIC, or NCIC. States with anyone with information about this missing child should call Fort Worth Police at 817-392-4222. And there's looks like the case number there. And again, you can always call 911. If you have any information on this 13-year-old missing child, please contact the authorities. The child just went missing on Friday, and today as I record this, it's Monday. So this child just disappeared right before the weekend. So the sooner we can bring this child home, the better. Again, I'm super focused, like a lot of you guys in the true crime community, on Delphi and justice for Abby and Libby. But this needs to get out just as much. And with all the coverage, again, like I just said, for Abby and Libby and that case today, I feel like we need to get this one done. So I'm going to get us all caught up. I did not make any note cards, so we're just going to go directly through all the Newsday articles here. And I'm going to try to just not read all the repeated information they always post, and we'll go through it from there. Excuse me. All right. So remember last week we stated that the defense tried to get the murder charges dismissed. As we can see, the judge said heck no, and the trial's continuing. So there is Michael Valva right there, the monster. So let's see what's going on here. Okay, the Suffolk judge in Michael Valva's trial denied a defense request to dismiss a second-degree murder charge against the ex-NYPD officer accused in the death of his 8-year-old son after Suffolk prosecutors rested their case on Thursday morning. The jury was not present in a Riverhead courtroom when Valva defense attorney Sabato Caboni argued that the prosecution had not presented legally sufficient evidence to support the charge that Valva acted with knowledge that there was a grave risk of serious injury or death. Capone cited testimony from the teachers of Thomas and his older brother Anthony 10, which he said was most dramatic with respect to Anthony, and said the injuries they described, bruises and scrapes, were not life-threatening. That testimony did not support Valva acting with a state of mind of a depraved indifference, which the jury must find in order to convict Valva of second-degree murder, he argued. Valva 43, who has been on trial in Suffolk County Court for the last month, has pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder and child endangerment charges in the death of Thomas and the alleged abuse of Thomas and Anthony. The defense has argued during the trial that Thomas's death was an accident. Okay. So it says Suffolk prosecutors contend Thomas died of hypothermia on January 17th, 2020, after Valva forced Thomas to sleep in a freezing garage and then doused him with cold water from his spigot outside their Central Mauritius home. Valva's ex-fiancée, Angela Polina, 45, has also pleaded not guilty to the same charges and is set to be tried before Justice Timothy R. Manzini at a date that has not yet been set. And again, I will keep everyone updated once I find that date out. It was Angela Polina who conceived of, orchestrated, and implemented having the boy sleep in the garage, Capone said during the hearing, seeking the charge dismissal, adding it was Valva who worked to undo Polina's alleged actions, as evidenced by multiple text messages detailing instances of Michael Valva protesting Angela's treatment of the children. At the hearing, Capone said prosecutors have more than 340 video clips from the Nest camera system at the Valva-Polina residence in evidence, as well as 6,000 pages of text messages. But, he said, the prosecution failed to show the jury all of the material, including video and text, showing the times when the boys slept in their upstairs bedroom. I would think that was probably very small amount of time. Angela Polina chastised Michael Valva for sneaking behind her back and letting them in the house, Capone argued. Lead prosecutor Carrie Ann Kelly opposed the motion and recounted video evidence that the jury saw of the boy sleeping on the bare garage floor and shivering. He saw it and knew it, and he was the father and did absolutely nothing to stop it, said Kelly, who turned in Valva's direction as she spoke at a lectern mere feet from the defendant. Valva said that the defense table did not return her gaze. Kelly then recounted audio evidence that the jury previously heard of Valva interacting with his son the morning of his death. Thomas was in the throes of dying, and all he could do was scream and yell at his child, Kelly said. Repeating Valva's words from that morning as previously played for the jury, Kelly said in a raised voice, "Are you alive?" Slap, the veteran prosecutor said loudly while clapping her hands together to make the slapping sound heard on the video, which prosecutors contend was Valva striking Thomas. Again, we did mention this on the previous video, but I felt that this was worth going through again. Let me see if there's any further updates here. So again, she was reiterating what happened that morning and how it could be heard from that laundry room video. And I think that's pretty damning, in my opinion. So that one was to get us caught up to where we last left off here. So let me pull up Friday's testimony and see what happened on last Friday, the 28th of October. This was testimony from Friday. There was a defense witness testifying that the warm bath may have contributed to Thomas Valva's hypothermia death. Okay. Ex-NYPD officer Michael Valva's alleged act of bathing his 8-year-old son in a warm bath put him in cardiac arrest, which caused or contributed to his hypothermia death, a defense witness testified at Michael Valva's murder trial on Friday. The showering or bathing was the event that most likely caused the cardiac arrest, said Dr. Ken Zaffron, an Alaska-based emergency medicine physician who has written extensively on hypothermia. Zaffron's opinions on Thomas Valva's condition and the treatment he received the morning he died on January 17, 2020, drawn out by defense attorney Anthony LaPinta, sought to demonstrate the defense theory that Thomas's death was an accident caused when Valva accidentally bathed Thomas in warm water after he spent the night in an unheated garage in 19-degree weather. Thomas could have been saved if he received medical intervention for hypothermia, Zaffron said. His temperature was 76.1 degrees when it was taken at Long Island Community Hospital in Patchogue, minutes before he was pronounced dead at 10:28 a.m. He could have been resuscitated for quite some time. Hours after, said Zaffron, who was deemed an expert witness by the court, allowing him to offer his opinions. So apparently this is the Dr. Ken Zaffron who testified on Friday, October 28th. Prosecutors maintain that Thomas died after Valva washed the naked child with cold water from an outside spigot after he spent the night in the freezing garage and was already dead when first responders, who testified earlier in the trial that Thomas appeared lifeless, with pale skin and blue lips, when they arrived to his Centre Moriches home. The only indication of Thomas receiving a warm bath, according to prosecutors, was Valva's word. Yeah, this is the first I'm hearing of a warm bath. All I heard was that he took him outside and he sprayed him with cold water from the outside water spigot. So when did he give him a supposed warm bath? Prosecutors also allege that Valva lied to first responders and doctors and therefore prevented Thomas from receiving treatment for hypothermia when he said his son suffered head injuries from falling on the driveway as he ran for the school bus. Instead, prosecutors have said the bleeding scrapes on Thomas's face happened when he fell several times because he was unable to stand while battling the effects of hypothermia. Okay, and then they're repeating his charges. Let's see. All right, Valva tried to save his son by calling 911 and performing CPR on the boy, which doesn't indicate a depraved state of mind. Valva's defense attorneys have argued Valva thought his son fell unconscious from a head injury and never thought it was due to him suffering from hypothermia, his attorneys have argued. Valva had previously thought about the possibility of Thomas and Anthony getting hypothermia, according to trial evidence, about 12 days before Thomas died, according to a text message shown to the jury. Valva texted Paulina and noted it was snowing and real cold out, before adding, "Boys better not get hypothermia." So, you can't tell me he didn't think about that. He just put it in a text message. That's proof. They got the receipts for it. Zaffron, who said he reviewed Thomas's medical records, autopsy report, as well as video evidence in the case, said either a warm or hot bath would have caused vasodilation, a constricting of blood vessels. That would have forced Thomas's blood away from his heart and toward his arms and legs, leaving the heart without any blood to pump and causing the cardiac arrest. Prosecution witness Dr. Michael Kaplan, the former Suffolk County medical examiner, testified earlier this week that Thomas died from hypothermia. On cross-examination, Zaffron agreed with lead prosecutor Carrie Ann Kelly that paramedics, EMTs, doctors, and other medical professionals all tried to save Thomas's life. First responders and hospital staff had attempted several life-saving methods, including giving Thomas multiple doses of epinephrine, a drug used to restore cardiac rhythm, and continuing CPR, while Thomas was unconscious with no pulse, not breathing, and continued to be in cardiac arrest. There was one person that wasn't trying to save Thomas's life, and that was Michael Valva, because he lied to them, wasn't it? Kelly asked, pointing at Valva when she said his name. LaPinta objected, and Condon sustained the objection, so Zaffron did not answer the question. Well, she still got it out there. Kelly also sought to highlight gaps in Zaffron's knowledge of the case and repeatedly expressed surprise at the hypothermia expert's contention that it didn't matter what Valva told doctors about what precipitated Thomas's falling unconscious. It might be important, said Zaffron. In this case, I don't think it was. So, good on her. I am a huge fan of Prosecutor Kelly. And I think she made some really good points there. So, again, this was the end of last week. So this would have been Friday. And so we're going to get up to today. So let me pull up today's testimony information here. Okay, so this is Monday, which is today, October 31st. This would be the current update in the case via Newsday. All right. Defense in Valva murder trial presents case this week. All right, so this would be their first full week of testimony on the defense side. The Michael Valva, portrayed by Suffolk County prosecutors during his murder trial, subjected his two oldest sons to unspeakable cruelties, including starvation, beatings, and emotional abuse. The former NYPD officer, the prosecutor said, forced his son Thomas and his older brother Anthony to sleep in the unheated garage of their Centre Moriches home, often when temperatures plunged well below freezing. Valva mocked and slapped Thomas even as the 8-year-old was dying from hypothermia on the morning of January 17, 2020. Assistant District Attorney Carrie Ann Kelly said Thursday after the prosecution rested and defense asked Supreme Court Justice William Condon to dismiss the second-degree murder charge against Michael Valva. And of course, Condon rejected the defense request. And so now Valva's defense lawyers will spend this week trying to paint a very different portrait of their client, who has pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder and 4 child endangerment charges in connection with Thomas's death and the alleged abuse of Anthony, then 10 years old. Condon told the jury they can expect to begin deliberations near the end of the week. So maybe Thursday or Friday? Valva abused Thomas and Anthony, defense had conceded, but he did not show deprived indifference toward his son's life, as that legal theory of second-degree murder requires. Valva, the defense has argued, never meant for Thomas to die. Well, that doesn't mean that he didn't die at his hands and his ex-fiancée. Defense attorneys Anthony LaPinta, John Turco, and Sabato Cabini have not said who their next witnesses will be when testimony resumes Monday morning in Riverhead. Prosecutors said they may call in expert witness to rebut Friday's testimony from defense witness Dr. Ken Zafran, an Alaska emergency medicine physician who has written extensively on hypothermia. Zafran told the jury that Thomas suffered cardiac arrest, which caused or contributed to his hypothermia death after Valva placed him in a warm bath. Again, this is the first I'm hearing of a warm bath, you guys. Have you heard of this before? This seems like the defense is pulling this out of thin air. Prosecutors have said Valva forced Thomas to sleep in the garage on a 19-degree night, then hosed him off in the backyard with cold water from an outdoor spigot before the bath. But this is the first I'm hearing of this bath. Zafran testimony contradicted that of former Suffolk medical examiner Michael Kaplan, who performed Thomas's autopsy. Kaplan testified Wednesday that the boy died of hypothermia and suffered damage to his thymus gland, kidneys, and stomach lining due to prolonged stress. Again, an 8-year-old having prolonged stress. I mean, that's something you see as an adult or, a young adult. An 8-year-old? An 8-year-old should not be dealing with stress like that. In my opinion, the cause of Thomas Valva's death was hypothermia, Kaplan said from the witness stand. LaPinta, Loturco, and Capini have argued that the real villain in Thomas's death is Valva's former fiancée, Angela Polina, who has also pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder and child endangerment and will likely face trial early next year. So there we go. Now we're getting a little more, so maybe January, February? It was Polina, they have said, who demanded Thomas and Anthony sleep in the garage because of repeated toilet accidents. It was Angela Polina who conceived of, orchestrated, and implemented having the boys sleep in the garage, Capini said when he asked Condon to dismiss the murder charge. So again, we're going over that he mentioned on Thursday when they tried to get this case dismissed, which we all know was not going to happen. Okay, so they're stating that there was another text that was sent on October 24th that he's not going to be sleeping on the concrete floor. He's not going to be exiled. I'm not having any more. Valva added in the text. This was again on October 24th, I guess of 2020. If you're not going to have it anymore, then you could take him and you could leave, Polina fired back. Not a problem. I'm not having it in this house anymore. The defense has presented evidence that it suggestively portrays Valva as an engaged and caring parent. He enrolled Anthony Thomas and his youngest son Andrew in youth football, but he took them to religious instruction. He participated in parent-teacher events at East Morrich's elementary school. So I think that Polina did have a great deal to do with it from what I'm hearing. And again, I am going to be doing more on Polina soon. So I'm going to at least let this week go by and see what happens with Michael. And between the end of his trial and beginning of hers, we're going to do some more on Angela Polina. So it looks to me like Michael probably had some of this in him, but Polina, I think, really probably was the instigator But here's the thing. These are his children. He did not protect them whatsoever. I mean, that's just like, for example, the current case also going on in this case of little Quentin. The grandmother, Billy Joe, she had custody. She went to the courts to get custody of Quentin and his brother, and yet she left him with her daughter, his mother, and then he disappeared. He's probably deceased at this point. So she's just as much to blame for anything that's happened to Quentin as is his mother. So the parent, or the legal guardian, they have to take care of their babies. And so he's got no excuse, regardless of if he didn't initiate it and he just went by her because I didn't have anywhere to live, yada, 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 what he's claiming. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a bunch of bunk. So Michael, you need to step up and take care of your kids. They should have been priority, and they were definitely not a priority in your life. Dr. Melina Kawai, the owner and medical director of the Long Island Urgent Care, told the jury on Thursday that Thomas's medical records indicated his vital signs were normal when he was examined at the company's clinic in Manorville in May 2019, 8 months before he died. Again, as much as she may be a medical director and expert, I still think she didn't see Thomas, and she's going by records, so I don't give her as much, as the actual doctor who would have seen Thomas at all. So, let's see. In last Wednesday's testimony, LaPinta drew the jury's attention to Kaplan's autopsy findings that Thomas was well developed and fairly nourished. And this is a different picture than the one painted by East Norwich's elementary school teachers, who said Thomas and Anthony frequently complained about hunger, lost distressing amounts of weight, and were seen often eating from the garbage or floor. I got to tell you something though, guys. These teachers and then the folks in that school, they are going to see those children every single day, at least Monday through Friday. So they saw those kids for 5 days a week. So I think that their testimony is completely vital, and I believe what those teachers had to say. You didn't find that he was emancipated, right? LaPinta asked Kaplan. That's correct, Kaplan said. Still, it would not be easy for the defense team to change the disturbing narrative presented by the prosecutor, Kelly, and her colleagues, Laura Nakumbi and James Scheichel. More than 24 witnesses, school teachers, emergency responders, police officers, and medical professionals have testified how the last few years of Thomas's life were marked by hunger, beatings, and nights spent sleeping on the garage floor. Court officers have chastised gallery members for emotional outbursts prompted by the evidence, and Condon warned last week that such behavior could lead to a mistrial. Yeah, guys, please, for everybody who's attending this trial in person, please, refrain from talking in the courtroom. I mean, these are big trials, and these babies need their justice, and we don't want a mistrial. Text messages and video taken from the Bittersweet Lane security system also show Anthony and Thomas shivering in the cold garage, Valva threatening to beat his boys with a belt, and Valva belittling Thomas, who repeatedly stumbled and fell to the floor as he was dying from hypothermia. Shortly before Thomas died, audio from the home security system recorded Paulina asking Valva why Thomas was stumbling. Because he's cold. Boo, expletive, who? And I still feel that way about that statement. So let me see if there's an update further, because this was from this morning. Let me see if Newsday has updated it, because I started recording this after work. So let me see if there's a current update here. So this is from the Patchogue Patch, and they have some information here. And they posted this at around 10:30 a.m. this morning. So, and it was updated like 4 minutes later. So again, I need to see if there's any further updates here. They use Newsday, and these usually have some updates after 5 during the trial. So, all right, here's what the Patch has to say. After weeks of explosive and anguished testimony in the murder trial of ex-NYPD officer Michael Valva, whose son Thomas 8 froze to death in his father's garage in 2020, Valva himself could be set to take the stand on Wednesday. According to attorney John LaTurco, Valva is scheduled to be Wednesday's witness if he chooses to testify. Do you guys think he's going to testify on Wednesday? I would sure love to hear if he does. What does he have to say? How is he going to defend himself? The defense continues to bring forward witnesses after the prosecution rested its case last week. Closing arguments could begin by the end of this week, which of course Newsday stated that. At the conclusion of the prosecution's case, the defense argued that the murder count should be dismissed. We already knew that. Let's see. Defense added, we expected Judge Condon to deny our motion at this state of the proceedings, but we preserved our client's future remedies if needed, and we will go forward with our defense, including final summations to the jury at the end of the trial. Oh, how nice of you. Before resting her case, Assistant District Attorney Carrie Ann Kelly turned to Valva and said, you failed as a parent, according to a witness from the courtroom. That's good. I like that. She is correct. Valva, let's see, along with his ex-then fiancee, Angelo Polina. They were arrested. Okay, this is telling us stuff we know. Again, for those that don't know, they each faced 25 years to life in prison. And of course, they both pled not guilty. And they will remain jailed without bail until the end of their trials. Hopefully they'll remain jailed permanently. Then we know Dr. Michael Kaplan took the scan last Wednesday. Oh wow, here's something new. During opening arguments, Assistant District Attorney Laura Newcomb told the jury that Thomas, who had autism and incontinence issues, had an accident and sold himself, she said. Valva, she said, began screaming, stop pooping, I should make you eat this. Oh boy. That one I hadn't heard before. Then Valva took Thomas outside into the cold and hosed him down with icy water from the spigot, she said. What did this father do, she asked, pointing at Valva. Did he try to help him? No. He began yelling, F you moron, walk. And later he said of Thomas, he's called boo effing who. And then we know he died a few hours later at the hospital. Let's see. Looking back to September 2017, when Valva and Polina moved into 11 Bittersweet Lane in Central Moriches, with both Thomas and his brother autistic and finding it difficult to communicate, the boys were punished if they didn't use their words, given no food. You know, I don't know a lot about autism. I have a lot of friends who I've had autistic children, but they're not normal children. You can't treat them like that. You have to have... There's certain ways to deal with these children, and you need to reach out and get assistance with that and learn how to properly teach your kids and work with them in the proper way, because that's just, otherwise it's just not going to work. Again, they're talking about how they were starving at school, eating crumbs from the floor and food from the trash. Every time I hear that, that just makes me horribly sad. It says, although the boys had been toilet trained when they began living with Valva and Polina in 2017, by 2018 they were back in pull-ups. Due to their accidents, they were forced to sleep on the floor on wee-wee pads meant for training dogs. And as we know, the dog Bella, was treated better than Thomas and Anthony. The dog was in the laundry room, and it was temperature controlled. It says, when that didn't work, they were forced into the backyard alone in a tent while the rest of the family slept upstairs in their warm beds. And the dog, too. The boys were next exiled to the two-car garage with the unwanted items. A life-size Halloween werewolf, a Christmas tree. No heat, no insulation. By the time of Thomas's death, the boys were living out of the garage. There was also physical abuse, Newcomb said. The boys were slapped and punched. Teachers reported red marks, scrapes, and bruises, and their soiled clothes reeked of urine, she said. The jury will see proof, Newcomb said, because 11 Bittersweet Lane had a Nest video recording system that saved information to the cloud. You can see the abuse they endured at the hands of their father. Of course, then we have the text. If they refuse to listen, they will be put out in the snow. Or another, I will beat them until they bleed. And when I get home, I'm going to effing handcuff them. Defense attorneys, however, maintain that Polina was the dominant person in the relationship, whose trigger was the boy's incontinence that sparked her anger. They said Valva was in financial trouble and had nowhere to go with the boys if he left the house where he lived with her. Witnesses, including teachers at Thomas's school, have sobbed on the stand as they recounted seeing Thomas and his brother starving cold with bruises and scratches and eating crumbs from the floor. All right, you know, it's horrific, as we all know, and I really hope Michael, the monster, takes the stand on Wednesday. I hope he does. I would love to see Carrie and Kelly, you know, cross-examine him. What a treat that would be, huh? But I don't know. As far as at this point, I guess we're not going to get too much information on Monday's testimony. I'll have to do another update. If he's going to take the if he's going to take the stand on Wednesday, I'm going to try to do an update on Wednesday night. So I'm recording this on Monday evening. I'm going to try to get this up this evening before I go to bed. So I'm going to try to combine any updates from today's testimony, because we still don't have much of updates even after we're hitting 6 o'clock here Eastern time, and Tuesday and then Wednesday. So that way we'll do a midweek, and then we'll see where the defense is, if the jury's going to get this case on Thursday or Friday. So this, again, as we all know, this is such a horrific case. And while I do agree that Angela Polina was probably the main aggressor, I don't have any sympathy whatsoever for Michael Valva. He did not protect his children at all, and they both deserve everything they get, as I've said before. So, yeah. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comments. If anyone, again, is attending this trial or is local and has any further information, please let me know. I've had a couple of you guys reach out to me on Facebook and as well as email. Please, again, I love the information. I'm here in Florida, so I don't have that connection. So I'm definitely interested in hearing any inside information if you have it. I'm going to cover this truthfully, but I also want to get as much information out as possible, because the bottom line, we need justice for Thomas and, of course, Anthony in this case. All right, that's going to be it for today, guys. I appreciate you guys checking out the channel. And with that said and done, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. And most of all, stay safe.